Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Mike here at Game from Scratch, and we are coming to the end of the Unity Game and Game Dev Assets bundle. Now, if you're a regular to this channel, you know I've been covering this one quite a bit. I've basically been going step by step through a number of the assets that are included in this bundle to let you know if it's worthwhile to pick this one up. And point blank, if you are a Unity developer, it is probably worthwhile to pick this one up. But what I'm going to do today, because we are coming to the end of the bundle, is I'm going to cover the best of the rest. A lot of the stuff that I think is, requires a little bit of explanation. I'm going to go hands-on with you, let you know what the asset is all about, and hopefully let you decide if this bundle is right for you. Now, the important thing to realize here is this bundle is expiring in 2 days' time. By the time I get this video up, it'll probably be 2 days remaining, unless they extend it, which I've got to be honest, it wouldn't shock me if they do add a few days to this one, but I wouldn't rely on it. So if you want to pick this up and you are a Unity developer, you've got 2 days left. Now, if you're interested in knowing what is in this bundle, it's probably one of the best 30 bucks you can spend. Again, if you are a Unity developer, I've gotten hands-on with a couple of these assets in more detail than I'm going to go today. So in the past, we took a look at the FPS Builder add-on. This is basically an FPS learning kit or framework for creating your own FPS-style game. We took a look at Peak, which in all honesty was my favorite asset so far. This kind of changes the way that Unity works. It gives you some floating dynamic toolbars so you can get rid of things like the workspace and inspector window if you so prefer. We've got the UModeler. UModeler actually kind of turns Unity itself into a 3D modeling and texturing environment, so you can do real-time prototyping and so on directly inside of the Unity game engine. And then finally, I checked out Clazels, which is a volumetric kind of meta ball-like solution for creating and possibly having animated clay objects in your game. And today we're going to take a look at some of the other assets that remain in this bundle. I also checked out some of the snaps pack in a previous video when these were added after the fact. So if you only saw the initial video, since this bundle went live, the snaps, there's 6 of these snaps, 3 low def, 3 high def, were also added in. So I did cover those in a previous video as well. So now we're going to jump in and take a look at about half dozen more of these at the very least, and we're going to do it probably 1 to 2 minutes per asset. So I'm not going to go into a huge amount of depth, but you're going to give an idea of what some of this other stuff is. So without further ado, let us jump in. All right, so we'll start this off with the classic Canadian twofer. So we'll start off with OverCloud. This is an asset for doing dynamic skies, basically, for your environment, so making your environment really pop and come to life here. There's one thing to be aware of with OverCloud. It's normally $100, which makes it a pretty good bargain here. But this one supports the Unity default rendering pipeline only. So if you're using a programmable pipeline, it is not currently supported. There's nothing to say that they won't port it to the Unity pipeline, but there's nothing to say that they will either. So one of those things to definitely be aware of. If you're using a programmable pipeline, OverCloud may not be for you. The other one that's going to get a cameo in this video is Thor. Thor is a straightforward thing for basically creating thunderstorm effects. This one, however, is for all the major pipelines, both the programmable and the built-in pipeline. All right, so let's jump straight in and take a look at this one. So first one you have here, this is the OverCloud. This is their actual demo out of the box, which is actually really, really impressive. So you can see here all of the skies that you're seeing here. Let me just turn down the volume so that's not picking up in the mic. It's got this impressive cloud-based so these are all volumetric clouds you're flying through. And then the sky you're seeing in the background, all the cloud cover, the sun you're seeing up there, the weather effects, all of that stuff is handled by OverCloud. I'm going to switch over here so we can press 1 through 6 to switch out. So here we are in 1, nice clean weather. The rain will go away. And then we've got various different things. So we can switch to overcast. And then we go straight out into full-on storms, which I'll hit here. So now we're going to start getting storms. So you see here the clouds got darker. And that's basically what OverCloud is all about. It just makes this cloud layer, a volumetric cloud, so you can see here we can actually fly into and through it. And you see we've also got a bit of weather effects going on applied to our camera. Pretty straightforward to use. You're basically just dropping a prefab into your world and hooking a script up to your camera, and you are good to go. Now, you notice in the background there we had a little bit of lightning going on. Well, the cool thing that we can do here, because we have everything in the asset bundle, is we can also go ahead and show Thor. Now, Thor is all about making lightning as well. So go here. Thor is installed into a folder called plugins. And to install Thor, literally, you just add the prefab into your world like so. Apply the camera to it. So let's just grab our camera, which is a little hard to find in this particular case. Just drop down here. It is in the control rig. So mouse flight rig, cam rig, main camera. And so we just want to grab this guy, drop this in as the camera like so. And then really all that's left to do is to set up how much lightning you want to have, how high the lightning is going to come. So this is actually something we'd want to tweak with this example because our cloud cover is up a little higher than you might expect. I've got a camera set up. We've got advanced settings here as well if we want to control how the audio works attached to the lightning and so on. And now that we've got our lightning in place, that should be all we need to do to set up Thor. We'll just do a resume of our demo here. And let me just turn that down. And we should have lightning. Come on, lightning. Oh, so we had a flash of lightning there for a second. Let's get down here. There it is. And there it is. So like I said, you're going to want to configure it so that it matches the sky layer. So you're only going to get lightning as is natural below the cloud cover. But with Thor, you're going to want to configure the height of that particular lightning. And one of the big things about Thor is it's designed to be a very lightweight approach. Now you can see that by the way that the lightning is arcing, it's too low. So I need to actually make it so that the spawn height is even higher so that it's actually arcing out of clouds, but you get an idea of what we are dealing with. So that is the two here. Both are kind of implemented as straightforward prefabs. Literally just drop the prefab into your scene and you are good to go. The OverCloud one is right here. And as you can see, the OverCloud has a ton of options here. You got configurations for controlling the volumetric clouds, for 2D clouds, atmosphere. You can set where the sun, the sky, the time of day, and so on. You can have it animate over time. You can set the animation rate. You can even synchronize this to the real world settings, real world date and time. You've got weather effects in here, wind, rain, lightning, and so on. So you really don't actually need Thor if you're using OverCloud because they kind of do the same thing. And then you've got weather presets that you can save and drop in and reuse it. So remember we saw there's clear, broken, overcast, so on. Those are all saved presets that you could switch between, and they're just set here. Of course, you got full programmatic ability of everything we just looked at. So Thor is pretty straightforward. Add lightweight lightning to your game, configurable where it comes down from, the sound it's going to emit, the look of it, and so on. And OverCloud is basically a full-blown cloud and weather system for your game. And to implement it, literally all you're doing is going to the OverCloud folder and dropping the OverCloud prefab into your world and configuring the settings, and you have a sky ready to go. Again, the biggest drawback to OverCloud is it is the built-in pipeline only, so do be aware of that. All right, so that was OverCloud and Thor. Our next entry is super straightforward. This one is the Winter Forest environment. It is a Winter Forest environment. This one's $50. You can see here it's got 29 different tree types in there, 27 ground coverage plants, decor models such as branch, fallen logs, so on, a bunch of rocks, a rustic village, and we're talking rustic, by the way, particle effects for snow, smog, and fog, smoke, and fog, which apparently you put together to make fog, and 8 terrain textures with 6 height maps. Again, it's exactly what it sounds like. So here you can see the level in action. It is pre-configured and set up in somewhat of an animated manner. So you can see it right here in action. You got trees swaying and so on. There's no camera controller in here. So instead what I'll do is I'll flip on back to the scene view and we will take a look around. So here you can see a bunch of the stuff being instanced into it. I think if we go over here, let me just fly up for a second. Yeah, there we go. So here we got a village of instant assets going on down here. So we got a bunch of different trees to work with, rocks and so on. And like I mentioned, a very rustic village, as in if you were in, I don't know, 11 AD Normandy, this is kind of probably what home would look like. So that is what this pack is all about. Pretty straightforward. Go down here. They've got a couple of demo levels to demonstrate what's in here. Most of your content is going to be in here. A bunch of stuff, so prefab buildings and such you can place. Then we've also got some decor, branches, tree stumps, and so on. You get what this asset's all about. Then we've got a fence being used there. So if you're looking for outdoor nature, winter scenes, and so on, pretty straightforward. We got some tree stumps to work with, like that. Yeah, this one is exactly what it is. It's a winter asset pack. And yeah, so that one is the Winter Forest environment, I believe it was called. Normally $50, so a decent setup for sure. And now let's move on. Next up, we have the Horse AnimSet Pro. Now, this one is really kind of interesting and probably got my vote for the asset most likely to be asset flipped in the immediate future, because this one is really sort of out of the box ready to go. And what this is basically an animal controller for horse and horseback riding. It's got a stunning level of capability. So here you can see it comes with a basic controller for dealing with humans on horses, it's also got full-blown support for horses. And you see here is our character in the world, and we've got a number of setups here. So Maliber's input scripts. So we got things for jumping, dismounting, aiming, using weapons, and so on. Different controls for different combos. We got kind of a basic inventory system here for weapons. We've got a rider control script. It's if you want to add a horse into your world, speaking of which, here then is your horse, and your horse has a number of settings for it as well. And this combination goes together. So if you want to add horses into your world, you've got basically the logic and the requirements and some assets for integrating horses and horse animations in. So here we go, straight up. I'm trying to remember how to mount. Oh, there was a description there. All right. Let's look at the horse. We got a couple of different horses we can go with. And here we're now mounted on top of the horse. And we've got jumping, rearing, and then we kind of just run around in the world. And this world has a bunch of things we can do to our poor horse. So we've got, and then I can do weapon systems. So if you got horseback shooting, that is all implemented inside. You can switch between weapons. So if you've got, let's see, it's G. So there we threw a grenade of some kind, throwables. So you've got throwables from horseback. You've got a sword, or if you use right click, you've got a bow and bow aiming. So you've got a surprising amount of capability here. You can make your horse run, make your horse jump, and so on. So if you need to add horses to your game, you've got a ton of stuff here, and there's a ton of different examples. So this one is like an Assassin's Creed style combat simulation that they're showcasing here, but you'll notice here you've got a bunch of examples to get you going, calling your horse, handling your horse, simple riding, and so on. And I was in the first-person view also as well there. So if you need to add a horse to your game, frankly, the horse AnimSet Pro, that's what it's all about. And again, it comes with a number of horses, or it comes with horse, I guess we could say. So come down here, we'll take a look. Where did you go? Not animations. I think I went out the wrong spot. Demos, animations, assets. All right, assets. Oh, no, prefabs, horses. There we go. So you see we've got a handful of different horse options, and they're all rigged and ready to go, all from a common base prefab horse that you can start from as well. So if you want to add a horse to your game, this is kind of a bit of a no-brainer. Why am I inside the horse? No, not sure what's going on with this prefab. But anyways, that is the horse AnimSet Pro, and let's move on. Next up, we have the all-in-one Sprite Shader. Now, this one's pretty straightforward. It's a shader that you apply to your sprites that gives you basically all kinds of simple superpowers to work with your sprites in general. So let's jump in, take a look at it as well. So here is the demo opened up for it. You basically have a number of sprites here in this world. You'll notice that there's this all-in-one shader has been applied to them. You basically replace the default material with the all-in-one sprite shape material. And you can notice you have some special abilities here. So you can create sprite atlases, set things up, create different special effects, and so on. And speaking of special effects, here, let's go take a look at what this guy is capable of. So it's a number of special effects you could do on sprites. So you've got original sprite, glowing sprites, fading sprites with animation. You have a regular outline. So if you have 2D selection of your sprites, you want to do that outline around the edge, you could do so there. Texture-based outline, same thing using a texture. Distorted outline, you can create gradient fills. Color swapping of your sprites, which is useful if you want to do inventory effects and stuff like that. So if you want to have like change from a red cloak to a yellow cloak, for example. Hue shifting, change one color, color map, hit effects with animations, negative, so you can negative color on the sprites, pixelation of your sprites, grayscaling, posterize, blur, motion blur, ghosting, outline, hologram, chromatic aberration, glitching, flickering, shadowing, shining, alpha cutoff, and we're back to the original sprite here. So you can see it gives you a bunch of really simple color effects you can do with sprites and some tools for handling sprites. This one is one of the cheaper things in here, but it's also at the $1 tier. So you can pick up a $25 asset for $1 if you're interested. So this one is obviously for 2D games and sprites. Pretty straightforward in how it works. Basically apply the material that is shipped and then attach the script, add all-in-one shader script in, and then you'll see the various different tools that are available under that. And the demo walks through all of the stuff that is capable of. Definitely one worth checking out. All right, that's it for that one. Let's move on. Next up, we have easy character movement. This one's pretty straightforward. It's a selection of character controllers using rigid body physics, capsule collisions, and so on. You've got things in here like crouching support, jumping support, midair jumping, and so on. And you can have it work in multiple different ways. You can have it control the player, the NPCs, enemies, and so on. You have multiple different control schemes on this one as well. So, for example, we had on Over take a look at the demo in action. Using WASD keys, we can move this guy around in the world like so, or we can switch out to agent, and this is AI controlled at this point in time. So I've got some control. I can do a Diablo style movement. So I'm doing right click mouse, and then we've got a platformer style. This is WASD movement, and it would be the kind of character controllers you'd use for a side on plastic. And then we've got a base character controller. It's basically just a capsule in the world, and you can see how it interacts with the environment. And we can do things like jump and crouch and so on. So this one's pretty straightforward. It's a collection of character controllers. There's well-documented C# source code that goes along with this one. And the nice thing again is you can have the two methods of movement demonstrated. Oops, I clipped through the camera though. So this one here is I'm doing mouse movement to move around, and then this one here I'm doing WASD key movement to move around. But stuff you would expect to be able to do, jump, crouch, and so on, are all implemented. If you check it out over here, so let's go grab one of these things. So this guy is added basically just a matter of you just add an ECM controller into the world. The only thing I didn't like about this particular asset is in order to use it, you have to import this project, and it's a project. It's not an add-on. So you basically start from the character controller, but you can see the various different things controlling this guy. So you got ground detection scripts provided, capsule controller here, character movement scripts. You can see here how it's going to interact with slopes, the ground, gravity, and so on. Base character controller script here for movement, crouching, jumping, and so on. So it is pretty straightforward. It's a set of character controllers and all of the code and scripting you need to make work with them. Again, the only thing I didn't particularly like about this one is it imports as a project. So it'll overwrite your existing project as you import it. So this is really one of those things you're either going to want to start with, or you're going to want to create a separate project and pull what you need over instead of just importing as an asset, like pretty much every other thing we've looked at in this one. All right, so that is the easy character controller. Let us move on. Now, this next one got a ton of requests, and so we're going to take a look at it next. It's the Mesh Combine Studio 2. Normally $45. This one is all about basically grid cell based mesh combiner, which can dramatically improve the performance of your game. Basically what it's doing is getting rid of stuff that doesn't necessarily need to be there and merging together things that can be merged together, and it's doing it in a way that it handles the scripts and textures and everything that's applied. In order to understand this one, we probably need a demonstration. So here I am, a very straightforward kind of boring level, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new game object like so. So let's create an empty. We will call this one rocks, like so. And with the power of that winter demonstration we were looked at earlier on, we're going to just add a bunch of rocks to rocks. No idea which ones I'm picking. I'm just picking a bunch of them. And so here we go. All right, so we have a number of rocks in our scene. Obviously, they're a little boring as we've laid them out. So let's move things around a little bit. Oh, let's make sure we're above the viewport too. All right, so that one comes up like so, like so, like so, like so, and finally, like so. All right, so we're all parented under the same group here. Now what we could also do is select all of these guys and we'd just drop a new tag on them. So add a new tag, create a new tag called rocks. Like so. Let's go back to these guys, grab the tag, and we could just tag them all as rocks. All right, so we got a bunch of rocks in our world, and I'm just going to go ahead. We'll just grab them all and duplicate, 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 and duplicate. So we got a pretty straightforward scene here. We got a collection of rocks under a game object named rocks. You do this placing things in your world. There's a lot of the same mesh in that case and a lot of actual overlap between these guys. So this is where our mesh combiner comes in. Mesh combiner, once you've got it installed, pretty straightforward installation process. Once again, literally just drag and drop that one into your world. If you want to see the full ramifications of how it's going, turn vsyncing off. You can see it go as fast as possible. But what you're doing basically here is you're breaking this down into a couple different categories. First off, you're searching for the parent game object that you want to start from. Of course, you could start straight out from Untitled and go from there. But what we're going to do is make it so that it's rocks. So there we go. We'll start with our rocks right now. And now we can basically search for things here. We can have active only, static only, or whatever, or we could actually do it by tag. So if I wanted to just grab the rocks, we could find it by rocks like so. You've got combined conditions here, so you can. This is basically how things will work together. So you can change light probes, change receive GI, casting shadows, and so on. Your output settings are available down here, so you can combine static objects or dynamic objects. You can remove the. Here, I'll expand that out so you can see it. Move the original mesh reference, remove tries below surface. Also, you can tag things as a surface. So, for example, I could grab this guy right here, add a component to it, and I have, oops, I have the filter on here. Go away. Scripts, and you will find I have a lot of things installed into the same one, but we will find mesh combiner, remove tries below surface. So you can tag in a surface, basically saying anything that goes below this, strip them out. That way, if they're never going to be visible, anything that is below this plane will automatically be cut out in this particular example. All right, so go back here again. So we've got our rocks selected. We're going to do it tagged by anything that is tagged as rocks. Again, this was, since everything under rocks was selected, we didn't need to use tags. But if you had multiple different things under the same parent, you could filter it by tag if you so wish. How things should come out. So what we're going to do, I don't know that that's set up right because I didn't set up my script right. We'll remove back faces. I think I need to set that to box transform. We could weld vertices together. It doesn't generally want you to do that. We could have it automatically add mesh colliders when we are done. I don't have any physics set up, but you can have it so that when this is done, the collider will be generated for you from your end result. We've got the option here. We can have it to use multiple threads to do the calculation. You can have it do this at runtime if you so wish. And then what you're doing here basically is saying, okay, find everything along those lines. So what it did, it found there's 36 different rocks with 8 separate materials and so on. And then what I can do is just go ahead and say, okay, combine those. And then here's where the magic happens. So what it's done is it's gone through, found everything, and you can see it went from 121,000 vertices down to 63,000 vertices, or 461,000 triangles down to 215,000 triangles. So a 47 or a 53% savings there. And that's kind of it. That's what the combiner is all about. You see here, you've got a lot of control or tweaking settings of how it is actually handled. But yep, that is basically, that is that. That is how it works. So that is the Mesh Combiner Studio, and let's move on. Now, this next one is pretty straightforward. Every game in some way, shape, or form probably has some data attached to it. And there's basic serialization built in the Unity game engine, but there's not really a database format in there. And that's basically what DataBox provides. It gives you a data editor and saving or serialization loading solution. And it's actually got some advanced abilities we're not going to get into here, but you can even actually have it mirror out to a cloud MySQL database as an example. So here you can see a very simple example. It's basically just a, so you're not going to see anything in the level editor because it's all procedurally generated UI. When I go ahead and run this, we're going to see a couple of options going on here. We can return all the float values. So you see here 3.3, one value back. Int values, there's one at 3, and a list of values from entry, and we get that value right there. Not a lot of magic happening there, but if we go take a look at the script, you'll have an idea of what's going on here. Yes, I use light mode. Okay, so here you can see here, it's basically you can have callbacks for when the database loads and unloads. And then you've got just basically return all floats, functions, ints, and list entries. So if you return all float, you can get the data by get entries from table name, and you loop through them all and then spit them back out. You're basically just printing them out to record. And that's kind of how this entire example works. Now let's head on back over to Unity and take a look at some of the magic behind it. So what you've got here is attached to this API Symbol script. It takes a parameter of type database, and it's got a table name called test table. So here we can see that database. I click it, you see DataBox adds a new type of type database. We could go ahead and open that up. It'll open an inspector over here, and here you can see you could have multiple tables in your database. This one just has one called test table, and we can open it up, and you can see here the various different values that are in there. So we've got A and B, so some float, some string, some int, and so on. A, B, and C are values there. If you want to go ahead and add new data into the database, you can add them right here. So let's go ahead and let's do that from scratch. So we'll do my table. So we create a new table, add that table in. We switch over to my table, and now we can start adding values into it. So it's like entry ID equals player ID value ID. I have no idea what I'm actually doing here. So let's make that one a floating point value and add it in. So there you see new entry. So you basically add database level functionality to your game using DataBox. And then there's a bunch of functionality in there for doing things like, for example, if I go to this demo, this showcases, I think it loaded. Yeah. So here you can do data binding. So when you have a text box, when that text box changes, you can have it trigger off on change events. So here you can bind the value to actually have it call code back to the database. So if this text field changes, it will change this value in this database. And that's kind of the idea behind it. And then once again, you can get a little bit more advanced. We got cloud syncing here to another database. Kind of shows you how you can set it up to work with a cloud database server. There's more advanced functionality in here, like my MySQL syncing and so on, way beyond what I'm going to cover here today. But basically, that is DataBox, a very lightweight database solution for the Unity game engine. Alrighty. Next up, we have the Relief Terrain Pack. Now, this one is basically a terrain texturing creation tool for the Unity built-in pipeline. Now, unfortunately, this one is not working with programmable pipelines, although the author did mention something along the lines of eventually they are going to have to support the scriptable pipelines. But this one is used for doing things like blending multiple textures onto terrains, and then you've got support for some cool stuff like dynamic water, caustics, you got tessellation support, and so on. The editor features built-in geometry blending tools, splat composition tools for pasting down textures, LODs, and so on and so forth. Now, this is one I haven't actually had a ton of time to actually learn and get my hands on, and it is a complicated version. So I can mostly show you just what the output results of this are. And it's some pretty good looking terrain, to be honest, that is supposed to be highly performant. You've got dynamic snow support. I don't know if there's actual water in this particular example I am looking at, but if you take a look over to the left-hand side, you can see some of the settings available for this guy. So let me just exit out of here. And you'll see attached to my train, we have the terrain editor. You've got support for multiple layers and so on for painting down and spreading between these different layers. We've got tools for coverage, combining textures, set up for, again, we can do snow, dynamic water. We've got glitter built in out of the box and so on. Again, I don't have a lot of experience with this guy, and I don't have the time to invest in learning it much more. Just to be aware, it is a tool out there for creating and painting terrains using multiple textures with some add-ons in here, things like snow and water and so on. And this is going to be kind of an interest, and this one's going to become a little bit of a relic in time because after years and years and years of neglect, Unity have started actually updating their terrain support tools. And again, we are moving to the HDRP and the SRP or ERP kind of approach to things. So this is more useful for if you want terrain support using the existing built-in pipeline, where I don't think Unity are going to be focusing their efforts anytime soon at all anyways. So if you're looking for a tool for texturing terrains and creating terrains, this one could be a good choice. Just to be aware, it is currently for the built-in pipeline only. Just one of those things that you should probably know up front. But if you're still working with the built-in pipeline, the tooling for terrains is kind of lacking in Unity, and this could be a good fit for you. Okay. Now, finally, we will discuss Easy Mobile Pro. Now, this one actually has the least demonstrative abilities of everything that's here, so I'm mostly just going to talk about what this one is all about. But this basically does is a lot of the things in mobile that would make your life kind of annoying. It takes care of it for you. You'll notice also September 14th was the last release date, so this is being constantly updated. And this just kind of handles a lot of things in a cross-platform, mobile-friendly manner. It's things like advertising, dealing with the various different gaming services, and so on. So you see here, if you would need to add mobile advertising to your solution, you've got a unified API to support Ad Colony, AdMob, Chartboost, Facebook Audience Network, HeyZap, IronSource, MoPub, Tapjoy, and Unity Ads. So you can handle all these kind of different ads using just one straightforward API. Ditto for game services such as Game Center and Google Gameplay services. So if you want to have leaderboards and achievements, but you want to handle it in a platform independent manner, you've got that capability there. You got the ability to read GIF images, in-app purchases. This will handle between the App Store, Google Play Store, Amazon Apps, etc. Native API support management, including things like the camera and gallery. Again, you can handle it in a cross-platform manner, so you don't have to deal with it on a platform-by-platform basis. Ditto for notifications, privacy, sharing, and various different utilities that are out there. So if you're working on mobile and you want to deal with all of these things like advertising or in-app purchases or notifications, etc., Easy Mobile Pro basically acts as an abstraction layer between those things and your code. So anyways, that's where I'm going to leave the run-up. I think we're at over a half an hour at this point in time, and we've covered a lot of the stuff here, but there's still a few assets in here I didn't get to. Sensor Toolkit is another one. These polygon packs, we've seen those in previous videos in the past. They're pretty straightforward, nice, low polygon, flat textured kind of approach to things. This one still hasn't been covered. This one wasn't covered. This one wasn't covered. Some sound, none of the games were covered, but for the most part, we've gotten through most of the stuff that is included here. We covered the snaps in another video. I didn't cover nature render, but yeah, you've got a ton of content in this pack, and I think at this point in time, I've covered pretty much all of it. The only other one that was really kind of interesting was the low polygon ultimate pack, but I have to draw a line somewhere. So anyways, all of the links to everything I previously covered will be down below. We've got several new ones covered today. Again, not in a ton of depth because, hey, there are time limitations here. And speaking of time limitations, you've got about 2 days left, unless this one gets extended, to pick up this bundle if you haven't done so already. So if you are a Unity developer, the reason why I keep covering this stuff is, quite frankly, this is one of the best bundles I have seen yet. The biggest downside is generally Unity is moving towards a new model with the programmable pipelines, and that's going to break some of these things. So anything that I didn't cover explicitly, you may want to go check out the forum link. Every single asset store page has a forum post for it. Go to the last section of it and see what support is in place, and if the author is intending to support the HDRP and SRP at some point, or ERP in the sometime at the future. And yeah, so that's it. A heck of a pack, I have to say. Let me know what you thought of it in general. And yeah, that's it. I will talk to you all later. Goodbye.